All right, so we already went through the main workstation here. We're going to go over pretty much everything else in the toolbox. But before I do that, I'm going to go over just a couple of things that I had in my locker that were right over there. I'll show them to you over here. I do quite a bit of timing work, so these kits are really, really invaluable. This is the Chrysler Cam Master Kit. And I've added a couple of additional items in there just to make sure that I have everything I need to work on it. Like these were an addition. By the way, if you do buy these, Snap-on makes some aluminum, or I think there's some type of metal. They're a lot more durable. I've already broken one of these before wedging it in there. So if you do end up buying one of those, Snap-on does sell a pair of these, and I think they're like $100 for the whole kit or something like that, but they're definitely an improvement over these. Mopar did actually, to their dealers, send metal ones, but whenever they released the kit, they came in plastic. So just be aware of that when you do get that kit, you're going to have to end up probably replacing those. Then we have the GM one, which is also pretty helpful. And pretty much everything that was not included in this kit, I added as a secondary thing, and then I added some part numbers to that as well. So in case I break one of them, I have some information that I can use to, you know, replace some stuff. Those are pretty nice. All right, so we're gonna go with the top drawer first. We have a drill pump, transmission, fill kit. This is really useful for a lot of the newer transmissions. Basically, you have to fill it up through the drain pan. So this just adapts to it really quickly, and then you use the drill pump in order to pump fluid into that. That's a fan clutch master tool. A lot of these are not my tools. So our shop owner, actually, when we got the body shop, moved his equipment or his toolbox over to the other place. And so all of the other tools, when I got this box, we just put all the shop tools in here. And actually just have a matrix up there that I use to basically have all the part numbers and everything on this, warranty information. And it's kind of like just a pretty advanced Excel spreadsheet, but you just hit Control F and it'll basically give you a picture of where the tool is at inside of here. Like for example, toolbox B, drawer 2, like that would be kind of telling you where it's at, and then pull up a picture and you can see what the tool looks like and grab it for you. We have an angle grinder here that we use. We do a lot of stuff on our own equipment, so we just kind of have stuff in here to make sure that we do that. We have an AC probe up here that sniffs refrigerant that somebody broke, so we're actually having to have Mac come out here and hopefully replace that for us. We just have some various cutting tools. This is one of them that, like I said, the shop had one, and then I liked it so much I bought one. And then we have the DeWalt just general cutter. This just has, it's an old toolkit. Sometimes we might take that with us if we're doing like a roadside thing and we just need to go and bring something with us. It's kind of useful, but it's just in here because it kind of has no other place to be. I have a little bit of a wrench extender. This actually goes somewhere else. It doesn't go in here. Somebody just put it in there. But that's basically when we're raising up engines, we'll move that and basically put it there. We have various wheel lock keys. Customers will sometimes buy a vehicle and ask us to take those off because they're missing some of them. And we'll just keep the key and all the old lug nuts if we can, and put them in here. Just in case somebody is missing a wheel lock key, we can probably just give that to them because we really don't have any use for them, but you know, they're in here in case we do. And then we have our vacuum bleeder. This is just a bunch of different air hammer bits we keep. We don't have a shop air hammer, but we do have all the bits for that, so I'm assuming it's kind of a bring your own one, and we have some additional ones there if you need it. And then just various kind of different spline bits that maybe some of the other techs wouldn't normally have in their toolbox. Pretty useful for them. We have more air hammer bits over here. These are just a little bit longer. We have a bearing splitter set. This one's a little bit small, but we do use it every once in a while. We have our flip sockets for those chrome lug nuts that you get on a lot of American vehicles. We do have, I think this is, oh yeah, Torx bit set that's a wobbling kit. I actually don't use these a whole lot, but they are extremely useful if you end up in a really weird situation. I'd probably use them more if I owned them, but since they're in here, I tend to forget about them, and I might come back and use those every once in a while. Alternator decoupling kit. You don't really need one of these. We had a situation where an Audi customer came in and wanted us to replace the alternator on it, and then when we got the alternator, it was not the correct fit onto there. They didn't have a lot of money, so they were requesting if we could just replace the pulley, because it was making a squeaking noise, but it was charging fine. And we kind of made them a deal. It's like, if you buy this like $15 decoupling kit, we'll just charge you the labor to replace the pulley on there. And we ended up doing that, and that did fix the problem. But I don't like doing that normally, because we can't offer really any kind of warranty on the alternator itself. So useful to have, but I don't think it's really necessary. These are drive shaft sockets that are 12 pointed, and they're wobbles. That's pretty cool. I use that on like a lot of Ford vehicles, or just there's a lot of cases where you can use these. It's removing drive shafts. It's a pretty common deal. Ford spark plug socket remover. I'm sorry, the spark plug removers, and once they break inside of there, happens a lot. You need one of these kits, and we actually have a second one by OTC. It's good to have 2 sets of these, and then I have an additional one as well when that happens, because when it happens and your tool happens to break, you definitely are in a tight spot. So definitely useful. This is like a little grease extension kit. If you have grease fittings that you can't really reach. I don't think I've ever used that, but it's nice to have. Like I said, I bought one of these as well because I wanted to use an impact on this nut here. And I don't like doing that to shop tools if it says you're not supposed to. So that one's in there. Pretty pricey tool, but very useful. And then we have the steering wheel lock remover that I think we had to use for an older GM truck that we just got from like AutoZone, because it's a really one-time use deal, and I just didn't buy it myself. And then we have some oil filter sockets. We have the disc, the rear brakes whenever you got to spin the little deal in there. That's what that kit is for. This is pretty nice. I actually use this kind of often. Whenever you're replacing transmissions, nice to have a set like that. This thing will pretty much fit wherever you're putting it in there. And they even have a little bar there if you just want to use them by hand, which I don't know why you would, but hey, they put it in there for a reason, so some people must do that. Question I get a lot on this toolbox is it hard to keep clean? It's a dumb question, because yeah, it's hard to keep it clean. It's a white toolbox in a pretty dirty shop, and everybody's putting their dirty hands all over it. The design on this is kind of nice, so your hand kind of slides in there and does that, so you don't tend to touch it a lot. So up here is mostly where it gets dirty, but when you're pushing a drawer back in, that's the most common way people do it, and they get their fingerprints all over there. We have a bunch of time cert kits. We run into a lot of strip drain plugs. Basically, we try to repair it if we can, but sometimes we just gotta recommend a drain pan. There's not a whole lot we can do if this kit does not work, and we just have a bunch of different sizes in here. This is sort of the oh shit drawer for the shop. You can see our tap and die set, some turbo sockets, sizes for this. We had these hanging up, and people just weren't using them and putting the incorrect size on it, and ending up like making the thread so much worse than when you started. Adding this in here has reduced that by a lot, so I'm super glad. This cutter wasn't originally in here. This is just for like brake lines or something if you need to, or just any type of metal line, you can go and cut it. But I think we were actually making electrical conduit for our building, and we were just basically making different pipe shapes and having to cut them, so we were using that tool to do that. Some more time cert stuff, another turbo socket set, stud removal kit. This one is questionable. It works when it works. But for the most part, I don't like using them because they're just kind of a little too big. You can see, sometimes when you have a stud break off, you're not really getting enough room in there to get this tool on it. It's good for, like, I wouldn't even say exhaust because they're going to be in there pretty tight. But they work every once in a while. Like, I think I used it on like a driver's like seat. The frame, the bolt holding it in there broke off, and so I used that to extract it. I think someone just went in a little sideways and then they just left it like that, but the seat was all loose and the customer didn't even bring it in for that. It was just something we noticed, and we're like, hey, would you like us to try to fix that? And then we have these extra long bits. These are actually twisted, so you can basically extract out of those. You can see they're kind of curved, and they'll dig in there and take them out a little bit. They work okay. I tend to not get Torx head stuff stuck a whole lot. These are just mini screwdrivers. But when you do, I guess that's a pretty useful thing, but I can't find myself in a lot of situations where that's happening. This drawer doesn't really have anything. It's mostly just too shallow, so we can't put a lot of stuff in there. So we just have kind of some spare tire equipment, some extra fittings for the AC thing. This is actually for a nitrogen kit. It fits onto a nitrogen canister, and then you can use that for AC stuff. Or if you're doing air suspension on a vehicle that uses nitrogen instead of air, you have to fill it back up with nitrogen. You cannot use regular air to put that back in. And then a digital caliper, which I'm sure nobody knows is in there. We have a tool missing here. Not really sure what that is. I'm going to have to check our charts. A back pressure test kit. This is good for like if you're installing a little it's not a distributor, it's like a cam sensor, but it basically runs the ignition off of that. This works for a bunch of different brands, and it'll basically set the position for you, so you can just pop it in and you don't really have to go through all the work of like turning the engine and, you know, having to figure all that out and line it back up with the paper drawings that they give you in the repair manuals. So this tool saves you know, a decent amount of time. It's pretty useful. This is like a snap-on AC sniffer. It works, but it's just really old, so no one really uses that. They use the Mac one, or they'll borrow mine whenever they need that. This is the tensioner tool that I was saying. One of my other ones that it would be nice if they unscrewed and screwed back in. So I didn't know this was in here, but yeah, that's basically what I meant, was like, can these be removable? And then it attaches to a ratchet, which is basically... Not sure why the shop bought that, because I already have one. I guess it's just fine. Whole snap ring plier set, which gets used a lot. Oil filter. Oil pressure and transmission fluid. Pressure test kit. That gets used by a lot of people a lot of times. Some more GM timing tools. Oil filter wrench set. A Mac torque wrench. I don't know why they asked for mine when there's one in here, but whatever. Fuel line disconnect set. That's kind of a little baby one, but it still works. Yeah, BMW fuel injection tools. Removing and replacing the seals on there. Pretty useful tool. This is really similar to what we used at Mercedes. But basically this will pull them out, and then there's actually another tool. Yeah, and this is the one that will replace the seals on there. If you never use one of these, basically all it does is they have one on here that's going to go ahead and pull that off, and then you have some that basically this tool will cut the seal, that one will drive it onto it, and then this will kind of press it on through these and use little cones to kind of slide them on there. Once you've used it though, they're all pretty similar. All the new injectors are starting to be like that. We have some Toyota disconnection tools and then some transmission line disconnect tools, which they work pretty well. Yeah, it's a Toyota one. We have basically, when people have wheel locks and they don't have the key, we'll just use that master kit and it gets most of them out. These are just really deep spark plug sockets. It's just like basically a master kit. I wish this is the one I had bought instead of buying two separate kits. Would have saved me some money, so I kind of regret that. This is just a bunch of different bits, I'm pretty sure. Yep, it's the same exact one I have. This is a little impact driver, and then we have some extra bits because our techs like to go ham on them and break them, so I don't know why I'm keeping the old ones, but they're there. Tie rod end remover, O2 sensor socket kit. We have a bunch of line wrenches here, and then just these squiggly kind of, or these curved ratcheting wrenches, which I think these are both kind of things where somebody in the shop isn't going to buy them, but it's useful for the shop to have them. And then an oil filter wrench for some forwards. Fuel filter wrench. And then a bunch of crow's feet, which are pretty useful. Use them all the time. I have my own set. That's nice. This is basically, we use this on the bearing press a lot, pulling stuff out. Master slide hammer kit, really useful. We have a lockout kit. I actually have one as well that I keep right over here on the side of my locker. And I added just a bunch of additional things on there. This is just kind of the one that gets used by the whole shop, and then mine has just a lot of extra tools in there to help me really get that done. Here's another one of these. This is really similar to the one I have, to pull tie rod ends, inner tie rod ends out. Mine looks a little different. I'll show you that one because I don't actually think I went over that. Yeah, mine's a long boy. Mine looks a little cooler, and it's got a bunch of different sizes on here. And I also additionally engraved metric measurements on the side of them because it put a lot of them in standard sizes, and I don't really know how to read that very well. I just work on stuff that, you know, has metric stuff. And then we have a riveting gun. Pretty useful. The pneumatic ones are a lot better. If you've ever done them by hand, they suck. And this is just going to cut your time down putting those back in by a lot. It's going to really save you a lot of time. Then these are for exhaust. You basically, I use them for smoke testing, if we're checking for leaks in the exhaust. That's a good way. But a lot of times I'll use this and then just plug it, and then I'll actually just go in where the O2 sensor goes. And I get a lot more leak testing done like that. And then this is kind of more for like intakes and stuff like that when you're doing smoke testing. This is really similar to that. It's just it attaches onto the end and it basically pulls bearings out. I don't use it a lot because honestly it's a little confusing, but I've been told it does work. Then we'll go over to this one. Giant coolant pressure test, a heat gun, and then we've got our chassis ears, which is really useful if you never used chassis ears. Pretty awesome. Block tester over here. We had a bunch of block testing fluid in here as well, but it looks like everyone's used all that up. This is for GM water pumps. If you've ever done the ones that are kind of held by the timing chain, these tools will kind of be used interchangeably. I think that one was said to be a little bit easier to use, but this is the original one that was being used for that. Or they might be for two separate functions, but I think that's the one that I've used. And I haven't bought my own because everyone's had that. And then there's just a bag of different, whenever we get engines or transmissions, we'll typically take the brackets off of them and then keep them because we can usually add those onto like the new engine that we're putting on, or vehicles where the mount is missing, or even engines that just don't include them, and then we can raise it up by something. We have our Autel, our big boy, and then the little multiplexer in the back over there. Yeah, we got some. Okay, cool. These are for our smoke tester. If you own one of these smoke testers, definitely get the batteries and get 2 of them. It has a really big issue not being able to have enough battery voltage if you're hooking up to the car, especially if you're turning the canister and the purge valves on and off while smoke testing. It just sees that the battery dips a little too low and it'll automatically shut down the smoke tester. And so using the batteries, we basically just have not ever had that issue again. We would even use brand new batteries and put the smoke detector leads onto that and use it, and it would still have issues saying that there wasn't enough battery voltage. So really useful. You should get some of those if you're not using that with your smoke tester from Snap-on already. Then we have our chargers for just additional charging for people's devices, for people's streamlights, and then we have some extra tablets back here for new employees. Well, basically that just goes over all your orientation stuff, and also for you to use our RO writing software and everything like that. Then we have another cutting tool over here, a little impact driver, another sideways cutting drill, which is really useful, and a bunch of walkie-talkies. I use these a lot for if we're doing like brake bleeding, or in some cases when we're doing alignment, somebody needs to be up there to watch the steering wheel, like on the big F-250s. Basically you align down there and it's going to be rotating the steering wheel, and we found that to be the most accurate way to get an alignment pretty much on the first try. But it gets kind of loud in here, so typically I'll just give somebody a walkie-talkie, and then I'll be doing the alignment and kind of giving them, you know, instructions or letting me know using that instead of trying to yell up there and trying to let me know. And we got some extra batteries. The shop impact is being used by someone, so we just only got one here, but usually we have a couple. This is actually my old my old borescope that I had that was wired. My new one is wireless, but I kept this one in here because it loads a lot faster. And then people can just kind of use it. And then this is the shop one, which is, I don't really understand what the function of it is. It's not wireless. It's got a cable on it, and you can, you know, still inspect things with that and take the pictures and stuff. But you don't, like I said, it's still corded, so I'm not exactly sure on how that's that much more useful. But I suppose it is. But I think once you've gone wireless, everything else feels a little inferior in comparison. And we got our label maker here, and we have our thermal imager, which this one's really, really nice. Takes pretty crystal clear pictures. You can change all the settings on it to view different types of infrared, and then it'll automatically upload it to our cloud, which is really nice. We use that a lot for AC checks. We'll basically just look at all the vents with that and take pictures, and then just upload it on there. So it's really easy to get before and after comparisons when you're using this. Also for checking like thermostats, really awesome. Plugged up radiators, you can check with that. The Snap-on training says you can check for tire leaks. I've never done that, but apparently that spot's going to be a little bit cooler because air is shooting out of it. Like I said, I've never used it for that, but I suppose you could. Then I got a little stool over here, which I'm going to have to use to go over more stuff. These top drawers, this one's mostly just filled with additional parts that we have for vehicles and kind of the floor mats that I'll use on vehicles, and then some Honda ball joint service tools. And this is one of the kits we use a lot. It's the Motorcraft like the fuse bypass kit. We get quite a few of those coming in for basically a no start. This is the tool that is used to squeeze the tensioner for the GMs with the hybrid alternator, and this tool actually broke, so yeah, it was not good. One of the techs that used it did not know that you were supposed to remove a bolt in order to actually reduce the tension on it, and they just kept hammering down on it until it broke. But that is like a $400 tool. That is really, really upsetting. And we need to buy another one, but it's just kind of pricey, so we have it kind of on the back of our list. Yeah. And then pretty much the rest of these drawers are not really being used. This one has like a bunch of our it's basically got a frame for one of the vehicles that we own. It has like information about it, but all the rest of these are not currently being used with anything. These all just have a bunch of like repair manuals and stuff in them. Here we have like extra printer paper for our little sticker machine for oil changes. I do keep some manuals, and then CDs for when they have repair manuals, or just in general like installation stuff for some of our computers, and then some extra label maker stuff, and then the little thing on the side that went on the Zeus scan tool, which we removed because we need the USB ports all the time. This drawer has our hybrid service gloves, and this is for our hybrid service kit. We actually just made room for it because it was the dimensions that said it was going to be this big, and we are working on a lot more hybrids at this point, so we needed that, and we're just waiting for it to come in so we can put that in there. We got a power probe, and then this is like it'll basically change to whatever kind of sensor reading you're looking for, and it'll feed that into the computer so that we can know if we did put a sensor on it. It's basically like parts changing, but a little bit smarter. You can use you can put in exactly what you want, and you don't have to change a bunch of stuff. I actually made this kit for us. It's just got all of our smoke tester fittings inside of there, and I included a bunch of additional little hoses, the evap service port one, which I actually don't use. I like to use just the straight to the hose. I don't trust them, but I do have it in here because I know a lot of techs do like to use that. And then basically just a bunch of different fittings. Like I was saying, when we smoke test exhausts, I actually just made this little bung that we get on a lot of new ones, and drilled a hole through it. So you can basically just put a regular rubber tip inside of there and just hook the smoke machine up to it. And if you have exhaust manifold leaks, that's a really awesome way to find them. You can usually find them pretty quick. You'll see smoke coming out of them, and then you can, well, for us, we take pictures of everything that we're recommending to our customers. And nothing better than showing that there actually is a leak with a smoke test. It's a really easy sell. Yeah, that's the dangers of opening things, is they're not going to fit anymore once you try to put them back in. So I'm going to just kind of try to shove these in. If not, I'm going to set it on my cart, and yeah, I'll worry about that later. Doing a BMW valve cover on this one. It's kind of hot in here, so I've kind of quit working for the day, but actually not poorly taken care of BMW. I usually see these all varnished and stuff like that, looking more like this or more like that all over the place. So this is actually not poorly maintained, which is pretty cool to see. All right, now we're gonna go over to our locker. In here, got the mini fridge, keep a bunch of drinks in there, keep my waters in it to stay nice and cool, and some Gatorades. Then we have the Pico scope. We have, like I said, the shop has their own kit, so we basically, we just have 2 of those that were originally being used by the shop, and now everybody kind of uses mine because it's, well, it's just got more stuff in it. I believe this case is empty. We're trying to figure out what we want to use that for, but I don't ever toss these out, especially the fabric ones. They're nice to use. This has all our OBD1 stuff in it. I'll actually pull that out. Kind of neat. Got this when we got our baby Altel. We put our, this is actually a Mac, kind of a really quick oscilloscope to use, but now that the Zeus came out, really don't have to use that a whole lot. We have the old brick that, I mean, I've used it because I just wanted to see how it worked, but I still like using the adapters in my Zeus. And we have pretty much every OBD port you could need, and then just a bunch of general test stuff that would be used if you're doing that. Look at this. Man, who uses that anymore? Pretty crazy to see. Kind of neat. A lot of these you just gotta give them a knee, press them in. Cool. Yep, onto this drawer. We have our Pico scope, the pressure sensing stuff out of that. I use this one a lot. And then we have, this is also like an IPR tester for Fords. You can also use it as a remote starter if you feel like doing that. You shouldn't, but you could. You could. These are some Mac like circuit testers, which they're basically like fancy test lights, but I don't like the LED ones. They just don't do the same thing that I would like them to do. This is a shop multimeter, and then some extra wire repair stuff if it's needed. This is mostly just where extra cables are kept. One of the other techs liked my meter, and so he's using the shop one and trying to get used to it. Seeing if he likes it, because he wanted to buy one too, but I think he is going to like it, because I like it. Then all our old OBD adapters, which that's pretty much everything that did not fit in the big Altel case. Threw it in here. This is for flushing the DPF systems on some diesel vehicles. We kind of offer it as a service. If you want that cleaned, we can do that for you. Occasionally it will fix them, but sometimes it doesn't. So we usually give them an option. It's like, I think it's like $100 or something for the fluid and the service, and pretty much you just stick that wand in there, you clean it really well, and then you add the fluids that Liquid Moly gives you, and it does a pretty good job. It works on maybe like, say out of like 5 vehicles, it'll work on like 2.5 to 3 of them. This is for pulling oil filters off. Basically you screw it in there, and then you can just kind of pull up on it if you don't want to spill the fluid everywhere. That's a pretty useful tool. I've used it a few times because I don't like making a mess everywhere, and it's nice. And then this we have in here, Believe it or not, some customers have asked us if we tested the coolant. And yeah, so we've had to bring this out just to show them that we did. I personally usually don't test coolant. I like to go by mileage or the general fluid color and condition. I might test it if you know, if I'm really needing to, but in a lot of cases I don't see a reason to do that on every single vehicle. But I might start once it starts getting like really cold and it's also getting really hot. But generally we like to go by the history and the mileage on the vehicle for recommending services. And if we're ever doing a coolant repair, we're basically just gonna do the whole fluid exchange as part of that. I'd have never used this. This is I think you're supposed to use it tightening steering wheel the bolts whenever you're putting the steering wheel back on. I think you're supposed to turn it a specific amount, but that tool's kind of ancient. I don't really use that. It's for crimping new battery terminal connectors, the actual wire that crimps on there. We have an extra bunch of those, and then this one will install that for you. And then just some hammers, some collision tools which we don't use, and then just big sockets for stuff that maybe we needed it at one point and did that. We have another tool missing here, which I gotta go see what that is. This is basically to measure the brake force whenever you're pressing on it. I've never used that. There are some service manuals that tell you do need to do that, which is the only reason why it's in here. This is our Porsche scan tool. It's used specifically just for Porsches, and we bought that for doing air suspension on one of them. Our auto wasn't really working how we were expecting it to, so we went ahead and just got that because that was not a situation we wanted to have like an incorrect calibration on it, and it made the job a lot faster. So I really like that our general manager gets that stuff for us. Here it is. And then we have just a little extra scanner that we use for some stuff. But otherwise, it sits in here. I can't say it collects dust because it's in a nice clean environment. Then we have a relay bypass kit, cylinder pressure kit, and then the leakage kit. Oh, that's just a vacuum gauge. That's weird. We have two of those. Yep. And then we move on to this drawer, which mostly we just have AC stuff. And then we have like a brake line flaring tool that we... Oh, nope. That is a power steering puller. Cool. Extra little Power Pro butane deal. A little igniter here. I'm pretty sure that's out. Yep, sure is. Oil filter tools. And then whenever we do BG services, we get a little coin in the bottom. If we trade these in, we can get a whole... They didn't really tell us how much these are worth, so we've just been keeping them and sticking them in there. And then we have a snap-on UV light. I like to use like maybe like 2 or 3 different UV lights, just to make sure if the dye is a specific frequency, we can have a couple different ones to use. But now we'll move on to the... Oh, we have an extra stethoscope here too if somebody's breaks or they just need one really, really quickly. Up here we've got a, basically this toolbox just has a bunch of extra connectors. Every time we get old harnesses, we keep them in a bucket, and then once this bucket gets full, we basically just strip down all these connectors, give at least 3-4 inches of extra wire on there, and we just keep a whole bunch of them in here. But that toolbox is about filled up, so we're gonna have to buy some more that we can use for that. Then we have a wire terminal kit. It's kind of another handmade one. And all the pins out of there. So basically on this box, we'll keep the connectors, and if the connector is damaged in any sort of way but the pin is fine, I'll just keep the pins and I'll put them in there, which be surprised on how many pins you can replace and fix a problem. So I like doing that. And then it just has all the back of there is filled with Strand swag, hats, you know, koozies, pens, things like that. We have our smoke machine here. This is probably the best smoke machine I've ever used. It has these different sizes on here for the types of leaks. I always put it at the smallest setting, trying to find that leak, and it'll give a pass or a fail, which is nice. But honestly, I use the flow meter, and I just see if it reaches 0, you do not have a leak. Like 100%, And if it's like 0.3 or higher, you do have a leak and you need to go find it, and that's something that's going to be visible. If it's like a 0.1 and a 0.2, you have a really tiny leak, and most of the time the computer is not going to catch that. But if I am having an evap code, I'm going to be pretty much looking for like a very small amount of smoke on there. And the snap-on dye in there is also ultraviolet, so you can basically put a UV light on it and you can see the leak, and it works pretty well. It also does vacuum testing, so you can attach another canister to it and use that. I've never used that function before, but it is something you can do. And we have our old Smoke Pro one back there in case this one either quits working, it's out for service or something. We've got a smoke machine that we can use. And then we keep some extra monitors, like old routers. The battery tester gets used a lot. And then just a box of cables for different people's computers, like HDMI ports, mouses, keyboards, stuff like that. And then that was the case that was holding this interstate battery tester. But I basically took all of our headlight restoring stuff and put it in there. And it's been really great. So anytime somebody needs to restore some headlights, so basically just take that whole thing out there. It's got all the discs, it's got a drill in it already, it's got the chargers, all the stuff you need, it's all in there, so you don't have to worry about that. And then we got my computer, which it's kind of funny. We due to the summertime, we've been having some power outages. So I've had to buy this because my computer basically shut down improperly, and by that I mean it completely just turned off, and my hard drive quit booting from there, so I had to switch my hard drive. And then I bought this UPS that'll basically charge up, and then once the power goes out, it'll keep my computer running and then safely shut it down if it starts to run low on power. But due to my troubleshooting, I took the cover off of it, and nothing special in there. That's just really fancy. I don't ever get to see it. I usually have the door on there. And it gets really dusty, so I gotta, every couple of months, I just go in there and kind of spray it clean. This is all of our camera equipment that we basically use to keep running, and some extra cameras. And then that fan, I usually have it pointed towards my computer to keep it running cool, because my Wi-Fi quit working on it because it just kept getting a little too hot in here. So my computer didn't like that, and that's why I had to put that fan in there. And then eventually we're planning on probably cutting holes in the back of this and then mounting a fan onto the back of it with some filters so that no dust gets in here, because these are kind of, I mean, they're not sensitive computers, but it's definitely not healthy to just leave them in here all full of dust. And then we usually leave these doors open because they're impossible to clean, and they're so dirty because they're just open all the time. But yeah, that is pretty much everything else that is included in this giant toolbox.